What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to Sunday's character trailer, Soloist. I'm very interested to see what this looks like. The name Soloist makes me think of how in his Myriad Celestia trailer, he was talking about him being the last one on the stage, and how in the special program he was talking about putting on a final performance before he leaves Penacony. So I have a feeling this will in some way play into that. In which case, no need to delay any further, so feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into it. Okay. Two versions of him. Consistently been doing that. Ooh, candle in the hand. Dual pianos. I'm already liking this. Okay, where's this gonna go? I'm loving just the focus on the piano. Ah. Ooh, I'm loving this. Okay. Penacony. Oh, what the fuck is that art style? I love it. Okay, they're moving. Ooh. Other instruments come in. This is so perfect for his aesthetic. Oh, reaching into the core of his past? Ooh. Interesting. Mmm. Okay. Jeez. Whoa. Ooh. Okay. Oh, I love that symbol. Okay, so this very much is a follow-up narratively and thematically to everything we've been seeing. I was right to call out the connections to the Myriad Celestia trailer and stuff. So we open here in front of him. We see his halo manifest behind him as, I believe, a pipe organ comes in, but then we pan around him to reveal that it's not just his halo, but also the halo of his past self. And then we have this very interesting tone starting here. We have all of these enemies that were once under his control surrounding the stage that is these dual pianos, one white, one black, opposites of each other. He approaches the white piano. We see his past self approaching the black piano. They are in complete mirrored opposite motions. He feels the keys, sits down, both of them do, and they begin playing. And notably, I think we only are hearing a single piano here. That could just be my ear not catching the other one layered on top, but I think it's, at least initially here, the sound of one piano, which would mean they are perfectly in sync at this moment. No, okay, there are two pianos there layered. It just wasn't immediately obvious. But we pan around him as the song begins, and then as it builds up, it stops and becomes quiet as we enter his just splash art, which, oh my god, him just leaning back from the piano is amazing visually. And then the performance continues. Things building, getting more intense and faster. We get a shot of a tall building in Penacony. We look into the window. We see him looking out the window. Other people behind him blending into the background. He slams down on the keys. We get a brief shot of a particular bird flying by. Not a Charmony dove, but another particularly important bird to Sunday. Another formative character in his past. And then this is objectively my favorite part of the entire trailer from a visual standpoint. the way it becomes this almost like rough painted style is really interesting. I love how we sort of lose the form of things for a time. It really shows the emotion behind the performance that he is putting on. And then the pianos begin to roll, still mirroring each other's movement. And before we get too much further into this, I'd actually like to just acknowledge what I find interesting about the name Soloist, given that this entire trailer has his past and future versions of himself playing a duet. Because as we can see in this shot, they are not playing the same melody, and as we can hear, they are not playing the same melody. They are complementing each other. They are playing a collective song, meaning he is not playing a solo, unless you consider the fact that this is both versions of him, therefore it is all just him playing. But that implies a connection and wholeness with his past, which intrigues me given the fact that typically with redemption stories, the character tends to condemn their past actions or be unsure about their past actions. Rarely does a character seek redemption and atonement or get a redemption arc while still agreeing with what they were doing before. And I don't know if that's necessarily the takeaway meant here, but that is something I sort of pick up based on the name of the trailer, the visuals, all that kind of stuff in conjunction with each other. So having gone through everything more thoroughly, another thing I want to actually point out as a possibility to what I was just talking about is that perhaps the name Soloist is speaking to the idea not that he is in tune with his past, but rather that his life is one continuous solo act, that he has attempted to bear the burden entirely on himself and be that guiding light, that performance that will show and inspire people to guide them towards paradise, as is his overall motivation. And if that's the interpretation we're going with, then rather than this being a duet, this is merely a layering of a past portion of his song layered on top of his present song. And ultimately, the thing that leads me to that potential option is the final shot here with him alone at a single piano, his past self nowhere to be seen. So that's just another option I wanted to come in real quick and mention as a possibility. Either one works realistically, and there's probably a few other interpretations that can be done, but, whatever. They move past each other, and we have some of the enemies move into attack as they clash with each other, causing the music to rise and build. As other instruments come in, we see him looking out and seeing his own reflection, not of his past, but of his present. But then, the mirror shatters, and we see his past self staring shocked, surprised, at, I suppose, who they will become. A revelation of where their path leads them. At this point, all that is left on the stage is their constantly spinning pianos, them continuing to play, the spotlight's on them, but the chaos is building as the chandelier is shaking above them. And then we have Present Sunday walking towards himself in this reflective pool. The performance builds as Sunday reaches towards the chest of his past self and reaches into himself, grabbing a stone, seeming to surprise his past self. He grasps it firmly to pull it out, and then we see his boss form, which I always forget the name of, reaching down and out towards him, as he reaches out his arms widely, in welcoming, almost. And with this, we see his past self playing the piano, smiling, and his present self with a more neutral, almost frowning expression, as the two pianos move to collide, and it cuts right before they do. And so we then see him in this reflected pool, surrounded by the fragments of his boss form. As we have our first line of dialogue in this entire trailer, it's only in the last 30 seconds. I was once Bronze Melodia, listening to the pleas of those who were suffering. And as he's speaking here, the piano is still going, but it is now a single, lone piano. A singular melody. He looks down into the water, looking at his reflection, and he continues, knowing there were no gods who would save people unconditionally. He knew that the grace of all the gods came with a price. One could not receive their blessings without some condition. And more specifically, he's speaking to his time as the Bronze Melodia when he would hear the people suffering, as he says. He would hear the constant woes of mortals and understand that no god would give that willingly at no cost. And that strikes to the core of his character in the sense that he is someone who deeply cares for people and wants to end their suffering. He just lost his way in attempting to do that. But he stands up as he continues, saying, "Change anything. You can only rely on yourself. And as he says this, he reaches out his arms, once again, similar to how he did before in front of his boss form, as a light shines down on him, speaking to the idea that you can't rely on the gods to save you. You must rely on yourself, or your fellow mortals. If there's no god that would save mortals unconditionally, well then he would simply have to do it himself. And it's here where the music comes back in at full force. As a feather comes down, a golden feather, and he says, "I will overcome the thorns," which immediately makes me think of his ult animation, as well as some of the imagery that we saw in the Myriad Celestia trailer. At multiple times, as a running visual in the Myriad Celestia trailer, feel free to check out my reaction to that to see this as well, there was this imagery of thorns growing up around him and turning into chains that bind him and pull him down. And even on his clothing, we can see the visual of thorns on him. And yet it's here that he says he will overcome the thorns, the things that bind him and prevent him from achieving his goals and dreams. He will overcome them. He cradles the feather as he says, "I have heard the call." And while enveloped in its light, holding this feather, he begins to float, as do the columns and pieces of structures around him. There's always a paradise that needs to be built, and I shall overcome my thorns to build that paradise, even if I should melt and fall before reaching it. He does not need to see the paradise he creates. He just needs to ensure its creation. That is his view. He does not need to be among those saved as long as he can save them. And as he rises up, surrounded by golden light, hundreds of others rise up with him. A chorus of voices saying, "Behold that vow like the sun in the sky," speaking to the power and importance and meaning behind this vow of his, that he will build this paradise no matter what it takes. He will overcome any obstacle, even if it burns him away in the process. And it pulls out to show just the sheer mass of souls coming with him, that he is carrying to paradise. The guiding star. And then it's here that we get some of the most interesting visuals thematically for me. First off, notably, he has more head wings here. He has 3 pairs rather than the usual 2, which immediately makes me think of, alongside all of these other visuals, this concept of ascension, of him growing in power and influence and becoming a greater entity. Innately, by a lot of his aesthetics and themes, he's invoking angelic imagery. And when I think of more powerful angels, I tend to think of more wings often. And so that leads me to that concept of ascension. But then, as a pair of his wings go to cover his eyes, we see Robin reaching out for him. She says something. We do not hear it as the chorus of voices is overpowering, continuing, "It does not restrain with violence, or persuade with arguments." Sunday's vow is beyond violence or argument. It is absolute. It is a vow to achieve perfection. Something that no one can argue with, no one can deny, no one would fight against. And while this chorus of voices is speaking the truth of this vow, the visuals paint something slightly different. His eyes become covered by his new wings. He cannot hear his sister. These hundreds of glowing hands reach up around him. As he reaches out, it visually makes it look like he's reaching out towards all of these hands. But they're coming from behind him. He's reaching out to Robin. But as he attempts to, as he continues to ascend, he reaches out to his sister to bring her with him. And she fades away. He cannot reach her. And thus his hand lands aggressively down on the piano, returning to the performance. And it's here where Robin reaches him. Her voice reaches him. "May this arduous journey of ours lead us starward." And with that line, we have visually Sunday finishing his performance alone. His past self is nowhere to be seen, as he is next to a large window looking up at the stars, I believe on the Express. And as he finishes this performance, his head is hung low. He is not looking up at the stars. He is entirely encapsulated within himself and his burdens. And what I take this as, based on everything else we've seen of Sunday so far, between the story itself, his Myriad Celestia trailer, what we learned in the special program, and this, is that, once again, these were the thoughts he had. These were the beliefs he held. He was going towards this dream. He had made this glorious vow that caused him to ascend beyond that of mere mortals, to become like a god, one that would listen to the cares and cries of the people, and they would be carried alongside him into the future, into a paradise of his making. But in his grand moment, everything fell from beneath him, and he finally could hear his sister trying to tell him that this is not the way. You will not achieve what you want here. You will not be happy by doing this. And what he is left with after that is being sat here, alone, on the Express, playing a solo act. His failures and remaining dreams left unfulfilled, weighing him down. He still seeks to escape the thorns, but he does not have that same determination that he once did. He does not have that guiding light that would lead him to become the guiding light for others. And yet, despite this, Robin still hopes that this arduous journey that they are both on will lead them starward. Perhaps in allowing Sunday to leave Penacony and explore the world and see how people live, it'll be able to bring Sunday some understanding. And it also makes me heavily believe that Sunday, by the end of 2.7, will be on the Express. In what degree? I'm not so sure. I'm not necessarily confident that he would become part of the crew officially, but I could see him temporarily coming aboard and joining us. Given the fact that in the special program, they said that 2.7's story serves as an epilogue to Penacony, as well as a prologue to Amphoreus, I would be not at all surprised if what the story is bringing Sunday onto the Express so that he will be there for Amphoreus. I would not be surprised if he continues to be a character going forward during not necessarily the main plot, but continue to be involved during the 3.0 updates. To what degree, I'm not sure, but I very much could see that given all the clues that we've gotten so far. And I personally am a big fan of that idea. The more we have recurring characters with continuing story arcs, the happier I am. But with that, that is where they leave us. They don't give us anything more, and it feels like a fitting spot for the end of his trailer. It's this grand, glorious rise consistently up until the very end at the epoch of his ascension, only to be slammed down to the bottom by a kind and caring hand which seeks to guide him to a better future. And I'm just super interested in Sunday's character going forward, because every single thing that releases for him feels tonally consistent, while also pushing me in several different directions on what I think might be the direction they're taking his character. There's definitely a rough direction that we can parse out here, but what exactly he thinks of the past and what he intends to do, there are just a few mysteries on that I guess we'll have to wait until the version releases. But I suppose we don't have to wait too long for that, given that the update is right around the corner. So with that, I will leave it there. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day, and goodbye!